by professional services company Accenture has found that South Africa has the third highest number of cyber crimes in the world, with about 2.2 billion rand lost each year through fraudulent activities carried out via the internet. So why is South Africa becoming a hotspot for cyber crime? James Preston, executive editor at Global Crypto, joins us now to discuss this and more. James, good evening and thank you for your time. Quite high, that number. South Africa, third highest, even though in terms of population, we are ranking at number 25. Is South Africa becoming a cybercrime hotspot, or are these bad actors just merely testing in South Africa on their way to bigger fish?
Good evening, Thabo. Thank you so much. It's a real privilege to be asked onto your show this evening. And that's a fantastic question, really, and very valid points. But I think what is a greater point to consider when it comes to our ranking of how often we get or how many security breaches we have in the digital sector here in South Africa is our ranking as an economy. I mean, we're one of the G20 countries, so our economy is extremely strong. We have a number of high net worth individuals. We have a very strong middle class. And it's for that reason that hackers from all over the world are trying to appropriate information from central databases such as Fabric. So I don't think this is a case of our security being any less of an international standard than we see in the likes of the USA, China, Japan, etc. This is really just a case of an unfortunate scenario whereby hackers from all over the world are identifying countries with a number of high net worth individuals, and if they can access those databases, then of course they can then access potentially a small percentage of those accounts, and that's where the challenge comes in. So I wouldn't put this down to South Africa being weaker in security. I would just put this down to a numbers game. It really is. I mean, the fact that we are third in the world, for me, could point to the fact that we actually have quite advanced hackers on the African continent. And the first country African hackers are going to go to is South Africa because of our economy, then Nigeria, of course, South Africa, Kenya. But, African hackers are extremely, extremely skilled, particularly South African hackers as well. So if it's come from an in-house individual and malicious attacker, which it is very possible. It hasn't been determined officially as yet. But if it has, then it makes sense that they would target their own in South Africa.
Talk about this Experian situation, a data breach, and they say we know the suspected fraudster. Did they hand over the information, the data, to the fraudster, or did the fraudster actually gain access to their system? And if indeed he did, what does it mean?
Well, you see, Thabo, the databases that hold these very important sets of information are not too difficult for an experienced attacker to breach. And I know that sounds rather dismissive, but it's true, because a lot of systems around the world are still using legacy databases, the same kind of databases that your basic painter down the road is using for their website, right? A MySQL database written in PHP is the same kind of database that you put a WordPress website on, and many of these databases, such as Fabric, are still hosting their entire client databases in those forms of technological infrastructure. So it's not incredibly difficult. It would have been a case of the attacker actually gaining access. They would need to get through and unlock a SHA-256 algorithm, which is a form of encryption algorithm. And once they get inside, then they can have access to everything. It's an absolute free-for-all in terms of information. And the first thing they would have done is to quickly run the information they gained against various bank account users to see who is not running 2FA, of course, two-factor authentication. And that's the saving grace for so many people. If you have two-factor authentication, you're absolutely fine.
Now, we've seen even government departments, and they, of course, hold classified information. We know that, for example, the city of Johannesburg itself was hit by a group calling themselves the Shadow Kill Hackers, demanding a ransom of Bitcoin. It must be a concern, though, if a government department can be hacked, right?
It absolutely is. And I think InfoSec and cybersecurity is one of the most important industries in the world today because of the sensitivity of information that is at hand around the world sitting on centralized databases. It's why, for myself, working in the crypto asset industry and blockchain, we believe in decentralized storage of data, which is going to be the future. They call it Web 3.0, but that's decades out from being truly adopted. And it is imperative for all forms of government institutions and centralized financial institutions to move over to more advanced forms of databasing as soon as possible, because the reality is these attackers are getting better and better every single day. And it's really just a matter of time. If you think, sitting underneath your studio right now where you are now, Thabo, if there was $1 billion worth of gold underneath your building, you would dig for as long as it took to get there. And so these attackers are working night and day to get into these databases. And so all forms of corporate industry must up their security and ensure that they upgrade to higher forms of databasing infrastructure. It's that important.
Yeah. A state of a pandemic certainly does offer them even more opportunity, I suppose, especially now where everybody is running online. Large number of people beginning to use banking apps, maybe even for the first time. We're doing a whole lot of conferencing now online, a lot of information sharing that is happening there, and I'm not sure whether all of us have got the correct firewall up at this point as we are conducting all these activities.
Yeah, you're 100% right. The more we adopt technology, the more we become prone to cybercrime. And so what is important, and I believe something that's lacking in the IT industry, is general education. We have travel blogs, we have food blogs, but we don't have blogs about how to secure your Zoom phone call that you're on. We don't have blogs about how to secure your banking app. These are very basic and important protocols that users should be implementing, and they just don't. They've never been taught. No one's taught them. They've always taken menu star as the way to unlock your phone. Now all of a sudden...
But James, that's the thing. We all have these devices now in our hands. They're called smartphones. They don't come with any security. They come with menu start, and you go in, and away you go. You can download apps. You can do your business. Nobody ever says, well, this is what you need to get.
Yeah, you're really spot on, Thabo. It's so important, and that's why I think phones of the future need to be more and more biometrically unlocked, because it's only available. Your certain forms of information are only available via your face recognition, for instance, or your thumbprint, etc. And that's really one of the most imperative things that all apps need to be implementing. They need to say, okay, if we're going to put an app on an Android phone, if we're going to put an app on an iOS, an Apple phone, we're going to make sure that this app can only be accessed using biometric technology. Because you're right, these days our entire life is sitting on our phones, and it's a disaster waiting to happen, as we've seen with this unmitigated breach, which is just on one of the largest scales in South African cybersecurity history.
The report is also noting that they talk about South Africa among the hackers, or so-called dark web, has increased markedly since 2016. And what does that say about South Africa, especially since you say these people don't sleep? They're literally digging for gold, and they're digging 24/7, 365 days.
Yeah, I think what it says for South Africa is that more and more South Africans are coming online. And I think that's a good thing on one hand, in that we're seeing more people with access to this information. But the more people that come online, as we've noted, more and more criminals have targets. You know, it's just an increase of targets for these criminals and for these attackers to gain access to their information. So again, I can't stress it enough. We need internet service providers to come to the party. We need government institutions to come to the party. We even need smartphone providers to come to the party and ensure that those that are coming online are protected. And that's why I am for regulation. You know, a lot of people in the cryptocurrency industry, for instance, are very libertarian. I am for and pro-regulation because people need to be protected. People are uneducated. They're coming online, and they need to be protected from those that are extremely advanced in this sector, who are sitting behind a computer with remarkable skills. I mean, you need to remember, Thabo, some of these hackers have been hired by some of the top government institutions in the world to gain access via, an espionage mission to breach the security protocols of an opposing nation.
Yeah.
So it really is a serious thing we're up against. These are very smart individuals, and we're playing with fire if we don't address it properly.
James, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us tonight.